My name is George Patterson, and I spent 32 years working as a fraud investigator for the Denver Police Department before I retired 3 years ago. My daughter's husband stole my credit card and bought himself a brand new phone. When I confronted him about it, he laughed right in my face and said, "Prove it, old man." So I called my lawyer and stayed completely quiet for 2 days. On the third day, the police came knocking at his door with handcuffs, and he went straight to jail. He thought I was just some forgetful retiree who wouldn't fight back. He was dead wrong. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. It was a Saturday morning in late September when everything started. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, reading through the newspaper like I did every weekend. The coffee maker was gurgling its last few drops, and sunlight was coming through the window over the sink, the same window my late wife Beverly used to stand at while washing dishes. She passed away 4 years ago from cancer, and even now that empty spot by the sink made my chest feel tight. The house was too quiet without her. I lived alone in the same 3-bedroom home we bought back in 1987, the place where we raised our daughter Jessica. The mortgage was paid off years ago, and I kept everything exactly the way Beverly had arranged it. Her reading glasses still sat on the end table next to her favorite chair. Her cookbook collection still lined the shelf above the stove. Sometimes I caught myself setting 2 coffee mugs out in the morning before I remembered. I was flipping to the sports section when I noticed the mail had arrived. I walked to the front door and pulled a stack of envelopes from the mailbox. Most of it was junk, but there was one white envelope with my credit card company's logo in the corner. I normally checked my statements online, but they still sent paper copies every month. I tore it open right there at the kitchen table and unfolded the pages. My eyes moved down the list of charges. Gas station, $43. Grocery store, $87. Pharmacy, $23. All normal purchases I recognized. Then I saw something that made me stop cold. Tech World Electronics, $299. Purchase date, Thursday, September 21st, 3 days ago. I stared at that line for a full minute, trying to remember if I had bought anything from Tech World. I hadn't. I definitely hadn't. I owned the same Samsung phone I'd had for 6 years. The screen was cracked, and the battery barely lasted half a day, but it worked fine for my needs. I never bought expensive electronics. Beverly used to joke that I was the only person in America who didn't care about having the latest gadgets. I stood up and walked to the hallway where I kept my wallet on the small table near the coat rack. I opened it and pulled out my credit card. It was right there in its slot, exactly where it should be. Nobody had stolen my physical card, but someone had definitely used my card information to buy something expensive. I sat back down at the kitchen table and pulled out my reading glasses. My detective instincts kicked in immediately, the same instincts that had helped me solve hundreds of fraud cases during my career. I grabbed a pen and one of Beverly's old notepads from the kitchen drawer. She used to make grocery lists on these notepads, and I still had a whole stack of them. I wrote down the date of the charge, the amount, and the store name. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the back of my credit card. The automated system answered, asking me to enter my card number and date of birth. I punched in the numbers and waited. After what felt like forever, a real person finally picked up. Her name was Christine, and she sounded young, maybe mid-20s. I explained that I had a charge on my statement that I didn't recognize. She asked for my account information again, then went silent for a moment while she looked things up on her computer. "Yes, Mr. Patterson, I can see that charge here. Tech World Electronics, September 21st, 1-299. Can you tell me what you're disputing about this transaction?" I told her I never made that purchase. I asked her if she could give me more details about how the payment was made. Christine clicked around on her keyboard for a few seconds. "It shows here that this was an in-person transaction, sir. The card was physically presented at the store, and a signature was provided on the receipt." That got my attention. Someone had walked into that store with a credit card and signed a receipt. "Can you tell me what time the purchase was made?" I asked. More keyboard clicking. The timestamp shows 2:47 in the afternoon on Thursday the 21st. I thanked Christine and told her I would need to do some investigating before I filed a formal dispute. She said that was fine and gave me a reference number for the call. After I hung up, I sat there staring at my notepad. Thursday afternoon at 2:47. I tried to remember where I had been at that time. Then it hit me. I grabbed my phone again and opened my calendar app. There it was. Doctor's appointment, Thursday, September 21st, 2:30 p.m. Yeah, I had gone to see Dr. Morrison for my regular checkup. The appointment had run long because he wanted to discuss my blood pressure medication. I didn't leave his office until after 3 hours. His clinic was on the east side of Denver, at least 8 miles from Tech World Electronics. There was no possible way I could have been in both places at the same time. Someone else had used my card. But who? I pulled up the credit card company's website on my laptop and logged into my account. I downloaded the full statement as a PDF and opened it. I studied every single charge from the past month, looking for anything else that seemed wrong. That's when I noticed 3 other small charges I hadn't paid attention to before. 2 gas station purchases, one for $47 and another for $52, and a restaurant charge for $89 at a steakhouse downtown. All 3 charges were from the week before the phone purchase. I never went to that steakhouse. It was too expensive for my taste, and I mostly ate at home anyway. The gas charges were strange too. I always filled up at the same station near my house, and I always paid with cash because they gave a discount. I sat there staring at those charges, and my brain started working the way it used to when I was on the job. 4 unauthorized purchases, 4 different times. This wasn't random identity theft from some hacker overseas. This was someone who had access to my card information and was using it carefully, spacing out the purchases so I wouldn't notice right away. The big phone purchase was the mistake. That's what gave them away. I needed to figure out who had access to my credit card information. I never wrote down my card numbers anywhere. I didn't shop online very much. I kept my wallet in the same spot every day, either in my pocket or on that hallway table. Then something clicked in my memory. Last Tuesday evening, September 19th, 2 days before the phone purchase, my daughter Melissa and her husband Brandon came over for dinner. They did that sometimes, maybe once every 2 weeks. I had made spaghetti and meatballs using Beverly's old recipe. It never tasted as good as when she made it, but Melissa always said she loved it anyway. We ate at the kitchen table, the 3 of us, and talked about normal things. Brandon's job at the marketing firm, Melissa's work at the dental office, my upcoming doctor's appointment. Everything seemed fine that night. Normal. Nothing suspicious. But then I remembered something. Brandon had excused himself to use the bathroom during dinner. He was gone for a long time, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. I remember noticing it because his food was getting cold. When he came back, he said his stomach was bothering him. Melissa asked if he was okay, and he said he was fine, just ate lunch too late. I thought it was strange at the time, but I didn't say anything. Now I was thinking about it differently. Where was my wallet that night? I tried to picture the evening in my head. I had been cooking when they arrived. I remembered taking off my jacket and putting it on the coat rack in the hallway. My wallet was in my jacket pocket. No, wait. I had taken my wallet out because I needed to check if I had cash for the grocery store the next day. I had left it sitting on that hallway table, right where Brandon could have seen it when he walked past to use the bathroom. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed to check. I opened Facebook on my laptop. I didn't use social media much, but I had an account so I could see photos Melissa posted of her life. I clicked on her profile and started scrolling through her recent posts. There were pictures from a hiking trip 2 weeks ago, a photo of her and Brandon at a restaurant, some sunset, pictures. Then I saw it, a post from Thursday night, September 21st, at 8:34 p.m., the same day as the phone purchase. It was a photo of Brandon holding a brand new iPhone, still in its box. He was smiling at the camera. Melissa had written, Look what my amazing husband surprised me with today. Finally upgraded from his old phone. So proud of how hard he works. My hands went cold. The date matched exactly. The price of a new iPhone matched exactly. I stared at that photo for a long time. Brandon's smile looked so genuine, so happy. Melissa looked proud standing next to him. In the comments section below the picture, Brandon's friends were congratulating him. One person wrote, "Nice upgrade, bro." Another said, "About time you got rid of that ancient thing." Brandon had replied to that one saying, "Yeah, finally saved up enough." Saved up enough. That was a lie. He had used my money, my credit card, and he had made Melissa believe he bought it with his own hard-earned cash. I felt anger rising in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. Getting emotional wouldn't help. I needed to think like an investigator, not like an angry father-in-law. I went back to the credit card statement on my laptop and looked at the gas station charges again. Both purchases were made at a Shell station on Market Street, which was nowhere near my house. But I knew that area. It was close to where Brandon worked. His marketing firm had offices in that building complex right off Market Street. I opened Google Maps and checked the distance. The Shell station was literally 2 blocks from his office. The restaurant charge was interesting, too. I searched for the name of the steakhouse and found their website. It was one of those upscale places with dim lighting and expensive wine lists. The kind of place where a meal for 2 people could easily cost $89. I wondered if Brandon had taken Melissa there and paid with my card while making her think he was treating her to something special. I needed more proof before I did anything. I stood up from the kitchen table and walked to my home office, which was really just the spare bedroom I had converted after Beverly died. I kept my old case files in there, along with my laptop and some equipment I had saved from my police days. On the top shelf of my closet, I had a small box with some backup hard drives and storage devices. One of those devices had footage from my home security camera. I had installed a simple camera system 2 years ago after there were some break-ins in the neighborhood. One camera pointed at the front door, and another one covered the hallway and part of the living room. I rarely checked the footage unless something happened, but it was all saved automatically to a hard drive. I pulled down the hard drive and connected it to my laptop. The security software opened up, showing me a calendar of recorded dates. I clicked on Tuesday, September 19th, the night Brandon and Melissa came for dinner. The footage loaded, showing a timestamp in the corner. I fast-forwarded through the video until I saw them arriving at 6:15 p.m. I watched us all sitting at the kitchen table, though the camera only caught the edge of the table from its angle. Then I saw Brandon get up and walk toward the bathroom, but he didn't go straight there. He stopped at the hallway table where my wallet was sitting. The camera caught everything perfectly. Brandon looked back toward the kitchen, checking to make sure nobody was watching. Then he picked up my wallet and opened it. I leaned closer to my laptop screen, watching every second of what happened next. Brandon pulled out my credit card and held it up to the light, examining both sides. Then he did something that made my stomach turn. He took out his own phone and snapped a picture of the front of the card. He flipped it over and took another picture of the back, getting the security code. The whole thing took maybe 40 seconds. Then he put my card back in the wallet, closed it, and set it back down on the table exactly where it had been. He looked around one more time, smoothing down his shirt like nothing had happened, and walked toward the bathroom. The timestamp on the video showed 6:52 p.m. He came back 7 minutes later, rejoining us at the dinner table like everything was normal. I sat back in my chair and rubbed my face with both hands. There it was, video evidence of my son-in-law stealing my credit card information, not just using it by accident or borrowing it with permission. He deliberately photographed my card while pretending to use the bathroom. He planned it, and then he used those photos to make 4 different purchases over the next week, including that expensive phone. The worst part was how he made Melissa think he bought it himself. He let her praise him on social media for working hard and saving money. He let her feel proud of him while he was spending stolen money. My money. I checked the video timestamp against the credit card charges again. Tuesday evening, he took the photos. Wednesday, first gas station charge. Thursday, restaurant charge. Friday, second gas station charge. Then the following Thursday, the big purchase at Tech World Electronics. He had been using my card for over a week, and he probably thought I would never notice. Or maybe he thought I was too old and confused to figure it out. That thought made my anger burn hotter. I saved the video file to a USB drive and made 2 backup copies. In my years working fraud cases, I learned that evidence could disappear quickly. Hard drives failed. Files got corrupted. I wasn't taking any chances. I also printed out several screenshots from the video, showing Brandon clearly holding my wallet and photographing the card. The printer in my office was old and loud, but it still worked fine. I put the printed photos in a folder along with my credit card statement. Then I sat there thinking about what to do next. Part of me wanted to call Melissa right away and tell her what her husband had done. But I knew that wouldn't go well. She loved Brandon. They had been married for almost 3 years. She would probably defend him, make excuses, or think I was mistaken. Brandon seemed like such a nice guy on the surface. He was charming and polite. He always thanked me for dinner. He helped clear the dishes. He called me Sir. That's what made this so disgusting. He had looked me in the eye and smiled while planning to rob me. I needed to handle this carefully. I decided to confront him first, just the 2 of us, and see what he would say. I picked up my phone and called Melissa. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding cheerful. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" I kept my voice steady and normal. "Hi, sweetheart. I was wondering if you and Brandon wanted to come over for dinner tomorrow night. Sunday dinner, like old times." She paused for a second, probably checking with Brandon. I heard muffled voices in the background. Then she came back on the line. "Sure, Dad. That sounds great. What time?" I told her 6 o'clock and said I would make pot roast, her favorite. She sounded happy about that. We talked for another minute about nothing important, and then she hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, already dreading what was going to happen the next day. Sunday came slowly. I barely slept Saturday night. I kept thinking about how to approach the situation. Should I show them the video right away? Should I give Brandon a chance to confess? Should I tell Melissa first, or wait until after I confronted him? By morning, I still hadn't decided. I got up early and started preparing the pot roast, following Beverly's old recipe card that was stained with grease and faded from years of use. I chopped carrots and potatoes. I seasoned the meat and put everything in the slow cooker. The smell filled the house by noon, and it reminded me of Sunday dinners when Beverly was still alive, when our home was full of warmth and family. Now it just felt heavy and sad. Melissa and Brandon arrived right at 6 o'clock. I heard Brandon's car pull into the driveway, and I looked out the window to see them getting out. Melissa was wearing a blue sweater and jeans. Brandon had on khaki pants and a button-down shirt, and I noticed he was wearing a watch I had never seen before. It looked expensive, with a silver band that caught the evening light. That was another red flag. Where did he get money for an expensive watch? They came to the door, and I opened it before they could knock. Melissa hugged me tight like she always did. Brandon shook my hand firmly and said, "Good to see you, sir. Something smells amazing." We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we had eaten just 9 days ago when Brandon stole my card information. I served the pot roast with vegetables and homemade bread. For the first 20 minutes, we made small talk. Melissa told me about a difficult patient at the dental office. Brandon talked about a new client his marketing firm had signed. He seemed relaxed, confident, showing no sign of guilt whatsoever. He even complimented my cooking twice. I watched him cut his meat and take bites, laughing at something Melissa said, acting like he didn't have a care in the world. Finally, I couldn't wait anymore. I set down my fork and looked directly at Brandon. "Nice phone you got last week," I said, keeping my voice casual. "When did you pick that up?" Brandon glanced at Melissa before answering. Oh, that. Yeah, I got it Thursday before last. Finally upgraded. My old phone was practically falling apart. He smiled and took another bite of pot roast. Melissa jumped in, touching his arm. He saved up for months, Dad. I was so proud of him for being patient and not just putting it on a credit card. I nodded slowly, watching Brandon's face. That's impressive. Those new iPhones are expensive. What did it cost? About $1,200 or $1,300? Brandon shifted in his chair just slightly. Something like that. The place had a good deal going. Which store did you go to? I asked. I might want to check it out myself. Maybe finally upgrade this old Samsung. I pulled my phone from my pocket and set it on the table. Brandon cleared his throat. Tech World Electronics. The one on Maple Street near my office. But I think that sale is over now. I picked up my water glass and took a slow drink. Maple Street, that's convenient. So you just walked over there during your lunch break or something? Yeah, exactly, Brandon said. He was starting to look uncomfortable now. Melissa was looking back and forth between us, sensing something was off. Dad, why all the questions about Brandon's phone? I kept my eyes on Brandon. Just curious, sweetheart. It's funny timing, that's all. I actually got my credit card statement yesterday, and someone bought an iPhone at Tech World Electronics last Thursday. Cost $1,299. Same day Brandon got his phone. Same store. Same price. Strange coincidence, don't you think? The color drained from Brandon's face for just a second before he forced a laugh. Wow, that is weird. Identity theft is crazy these days, isn't it? You should report that to your credit card company. Melissa's eyes went wide. Oh my God, Dad, someone stole your card information? Did you cancel it? I ignored her question and kept staring at Brandon. The thing is, it wasn't identity theft. The credit card company told me it was an in-person transaction. Someone physically walked into that store with a card and signed a receipt at 2:47 in the afternoon on Thursday, September 21st. That's the exact day you got your phone, Brandon. Brandon set down his fork. His jaw was tight now. What are you trying to say, George? I pulled out the folder I had prepared and set it on the table. I'm saying that I have the credit card statement right here showing that charge. I'm saying I also have receipts for 3 other charges I didn't make. 2 gas stations on Market Street near your office, and a fancy steakhouse downtown, all charges made between September 20th and September 22nd. I opened the folder and spread the papers across the table. Melissa leaned forward to look at them, confusion written all over her face. I'm also saying, I continued, pulling out the printed screenshots from my security camera, that I have video footage of you taking my wallet from my hallway table when you were here for dinner on September 19th. I pushed the screenshots across the table toward them. The images were clear as day. Brandon standing at my hallway table. Brandon opening my wallet. Brandon holding up my credit card. Brandon photographing it with his phone. The timestamp was visible in the corner of each photo. September 19th, 6:52 p.m. Melissa picked up one of the photos with shaking hands. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. She stared at the image, then looked up at Brandon with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was somewhere between confusion and horror. Brandon, what is this? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. Brandon's whole demeanor changed in an instant. The friendly, charming son-in-law disappeared. His face hardened, and he pushed his chair back from the table with a loud scrape against the floor. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. He pointed at the photos. You've been spying on us? Setting up cameras to catch me doing what? Exactly. Looking at a wallet that was sitting out in the open. I stayed calm, my voice level. You weren't just looking at it, Brandon. You took pictures of my credit card, front and back. You photographed the card number, expiration date, and security code. Then you used that information to make 4 different purchases totaling $1,287 over the next week. Brandon laughed, but it sounded forced and angry. You can't prove that. So what if I picked up your wallet? Maybe I was just moving it. Maybe I was looking for a pen. That doesn't prove anything. Melissa was still staring at the photos, tears starting to form in her eyes. Brandon, just tell the truth. Please. Did you take Dad's credit card information? Brandon turned on her, his voice getting louder. I'm not going to dignify this with an answer. Your father is paranoid. He's getting old and confused, and he's making up stories. He jabbed his finger toward me. You probably gave me permission to use your card and forgot about it. You probably told me to buy myself something nice. That's what happened. And you just don't remember. I felt my chest tighten with anger, but I kept my voice steady. I never gave you permission to use my card, Brandon. And I'm not confused. I have video evidence of you stealing my card information. I have credit card statements showing purchases made at stores near your office. I have your social media post showing the phone you bought with my money on the exact same day my card was charged, more $299, at the exact same store. The evidence is overwhelming. Brandon stood up from the table completely now, his face turning red. Evidence? You think you're still some hotshot detective, old man? You're just a lonely retiree with too much time on your hands. You're making connections that aren't there because you're bored, and you miss your glory days. Melissa stood up too, wiping her eyes. Brandon, stop it. Just stop. But he wasn't stopping. He was on a roll now, his true personality finally showing through the charming facade. You want to know the truth, George? Brandon's voice dripped with contempt. The truth is, you're a burden. You sit in this house all alone, cooking sad dinners and living in the past. Melissa feels sorry for you. So we come over here and pretend to care about your boring stories and your mediocre pot roast. We smile and nod while you go on and on about the good old days. Melissa gasped. Brandon, how can you say that? He ignored her and kept his eyes locked on mine. And yes, maybe I used your card a few times. So what? You're not going to miss that money. You've got your police pension and your paid-off house. What do you even spend money on? You're going to die alone in this place anyway, and then what? All that money just sits there doing nothing. I have a future ahead of me. I have plans. I have ambitions. That money is more useful in my hands than in yours. I sat perfectly still, watching Brandon unravel in front of me. This was exactly what I wanted. I needed him to show his true colors in front of Melissa. I needed her to see who she had really married. Melissa was crying openly now, her hands covering her mouth. You lost your job? Her voice cracked. What are you talking about? You said you were still working at the marketing firm. Brandon froze for a second, realizing he had said too much. Then he waved his hand dismissively. It's temporary. I'm between positions. The firm was downsizing and I got caught in the cuts. It's not a big deal. But Melissa was shaking her head, backing away from him. When? When did this happen? He hesitated. 2 months ago, maybe 3. I don't know, I didn't think it was important to mention. Not important? Melissa's voice rose higher. We've been struggling to pay rent. You told me your paycheck was delayed. You said there were problems with direct deposit. I've been covering all our bills with my salary. I skipped buying groceries some weeks because I thought we needed to save money. And you've been lying to me this whole time? Brandon tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. Baby, listen. I was going to tell you. I just didn't want you to worry. I've been looking for new positions. I have interviews lined up. I finally spoke up, my voice cutting through their argument. Is that why you stole from me? Because you lost your job and couldn't afford your lifestyle anymore? Brandon spun back toward me, his face twisted with rage. I didn't steal anything. You left your wallet sitting out, in the open. That's practically an invitation. And like I said, you don't need that money anyway. What were you going to do with it? Buy more frozen dinners? Get another subscription to some boring old person magazine? I earned that money, I said quietly. I worked for 32 years investigating criminals. I saved every penny I could. My wife and I sacrificed so we could have a comfortable retirement. That money represents decades of hard work, and you think you're entitled to it because what? Because you married my daughter? Because you decided I don't deserve it as much as you do? Brandon laughed again, that same ugly sound. Oh, please. You want to talk about sacrifices? Let me tell you about sacrifices. I sacrifice every other week coming to this depressing house and pretending to enjoy your company. I sacrifice my dignity listening to your long-winded stories about cases from 20 years ago that nobody cares about. I smile and call you sir and shake your hand while you treat me like I'm not good enough for your precious daughter. Melissa was openly sobbing now. Stop it, Brandon. Just stop talking. But he wouldn't stop. He was too far gone, too angry, and all the resentment he had been hiding was pouring out. You want to know what really happened? Fine. I'll tell you exactly what happened. I saw your wallet sitting there that night. I saw an opportunity. I thought about how easy it would be to take a picture of that card. 2 quick photos. That's all it took. And I thought, why not? George won't even notice. He's too old, too slow, too stuck in the past to figure it out. I could use some extra cash. We needed money. So yeah, I used your card. I bought gas. I took Melissa out to a nice dinner because God knows she deserves something better than ramen noodles and stress. And I bought myself a phone because mine was broken and I needed it for job applications. I leaned forward slightly, my hands flat on the table. And the expensive watch you're wearing right now, did you buy that with my card too? Brandon looked down at his wrist, and for the first time, genuine fear flashed across his face. He had forgotten about the watch. That's different. That was a gift. From who? I asked. He didn't answer. I nodded slowly. I'm going to check my credit card records again when you leave. I'm willing to bet I'll find another charge I missed. Maybe at a jewelry store or department store. Want to tell me now, or should I find out myself? Brandon's hands curled into fists. You know what? I'm done with this. Come on, Melissa. We're leaving. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Melissa didn't move. She was staring at him like she was seeing a stranger. Melissa, I said we're leaving. She shook her head slowly. No, I'm not going anywhere with you right now. Brandon's face went dark red. Are you serious? You're choosing his side? He's trying to ruin our marriage over a stupid credit card charge. Melissa wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked at Brandon with an expression I had never seen before on her face. It was disappointment mixed with disgust. This isn't about choosing sides, Brandon. This is about you lying to me, about you stealing from my father, about you saying horrible things about him right to his face. Her voice was steadier now, gaining strength, and apparently lying about having a job for 3 months, while I worked extra shifts at the dental office to cover our rent. Brandon's jaw clenched. I was protecting you. I didn't want you to stress about money. Protecting me? Melissa's voice rose sharply. You were protecting yourself. You didn't want me to know you got fired, so you let me think everything was fine. You let me struggle and worry while you spent stolen money. And what about that dinner at the steakhouse? The one where you said you got a bonus and wanted to celebrate. That was my dad's money too, wasn't it? Brandon's silence was answer enough. Melissa closed her eyes for a moment, more tears sliding down her cheeks. Oh my God, that whole night you let me think you were treating me. You ordered the expensive wine. You told me not to worry about the price. You made this big speech about how we were going to be fine, how you were going to take care of me. And it was all lies. You paid for everything with my father's credit card. I watched my daughter piece it all together, and my heart broke for her. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. I didn't want to destroy her marriage. I just wanted justice. I wanted Brandon to face consequences for what he did. But seeing her realize the depth of his betrayal was painful to witness. She had loved him. She had trusted him completely. And he had used that trust to steal from her own father while making her believe he was a good husband working hard for their future. Brandon tried a different approach. His voice softened, and he stepped toward Melissa with his hands out. Baby, listen to me. Yes, I made mistakes. I should have told you about the job. I should have asked your dad before using his card. But I panicked. We were falling behind on bills. I was scared. I thought if I could just get us through a rough patch, everything would be okay. I did it for us, for our future together. It was a manipulation tactic I had seen 1,000 times during interrogations. Shift blame, appeal to emotion, make the victim feel guilty for being angry. Melissa shook her head and took a step back from him. Don't do that. Don't try to make this about us. You stole from my dad. You looked him in the eye, ate dinner at his table, and robbed him. And when he confronted you with proof, you called him a confused old man. You insulted him. You said terrible things about him. Brandon's fake softness vanished immediately. Because he is confused, he's making a huge deal out of nothing. It's $1,500, Melissa. That's nothing to him. He's got plenty of money sitting in his bank account doing absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter how much money he has. Melissa shot back. It's not yours. You stole it. That's a crime, Brandon. Brandon laughed bitterly. Oh, so now you're a lawyer? You're going to lecture me about crime? I don't need to be a lawyer to know that what you did was wrong, Melissa said, her voice shaking with emotion. My mom died 4 years ago. My dad has been alone in this house ever since. He invites us over because he's lonely. He cooks for us because he wants to feel like he still has family. And you used that. You used his loneliness and his trust to rob him. Something in Brandon snapped at those words. His face went from red to almost purple. You know what? Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. I don't feel bad about it. Not one bit. Your father is sitting on a pile of money he doesn't need. He's got his pension. He's got Social Security. He's got this house worth probably $500,000. And what does he do with it? Nothing. He just sits here alone, feeling sorry for himself. Meanwhile, we're out here struggling, trying to build a life, and he could help us, but he doesn't. He never offers. He just makes his pot roast and tells his boring stories and acts like he's father of the year. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This was who Brandon really was. Not the polite young man who called me sir. Not the loving husband who posted sweet things about my daughter on social media. This was a selfish, entitled person who thought the world owed him something. I never offered to help because you never asked, I said quietly. And you never asked because you knew I would want to know what you needed the money for. I would have asked questions. I would have found out you lost your job. And you couldn't have that because then your lies would have fallen apart. Brandon pointed at me aggressively. You would have judged me, just like you're judging me right now. You think you're so much better than everyone else because you were a cop, because you solve cases and put criminals in jail. But let me tell you something, George. You're not special. You're just an old man who can't let go of the past. Your wife is dead. Your career is over, and pretty soon you'll be dead too, and none of this will matter. Melissa gasped and covered her mouth with both hands. Brandon, oh my God, how could you say that? I stood up slowly from my chair. My hands were steady, but inside I was burning with anger. Not just for myself, but for Beverly, for my daughter, for the years I spent working honest jobs and treating people with respect. Brandon had no idea who he was dealing with. He thought I was just some weak old man he could push around. He thought I would let this go, that I would be too embarrassed or too confused to fight back. He was wrong on every count. I looked at Brandon for a long moment, letting the silence stretch between us. In my years as a detective, I learned that silence was often more powerful than words. People got uncomfortable. They filled the quiet with more talking, more confessions, more mistakes. Brandon stood there, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling, waiting for me to yell back at him. But I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice at all. Instead, I spoke very quietly, very calmly. I want you to pay me back, Brandon. All of it. The phone, the gas, the restaurant, the watch. Every single dollar you stole from me. I want it paid back within 7 days. Brandon stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. It was a cruel, mocking laugh that filled my kitchen. Oh, that's rich. That's really rich. You want me to pay you back? With what money, George? I just told you I don't have a job. I'm broke. I've got maybe $200 in my bank account and 3 maxed out credit cards. He crossed his arms over his chest, his face twisting into an ugly smirk. So no, I'm not paying you back. Not now, not ever. And you know what? There's nothing you can do about it. I kept my voice level. I have video evidence of you stealing my credit card information. I have bank statements showing the fraudulent charges. I have your social media posts proving you made the purchases. That's more than enough evidence to press charges. Brandon took a step closer to me, his smirk growing wider. Press charges? You're going to press charges against your own daughter's husband? Against the father of your future grandchildren? You really want to tear this family apart over some money? You already tore this family apart, I said quietly, the moment you decided to steal from me. Brandon shook his head slowly, like he was talking to a child. See, that's where you're wrong, old man. Nobody is going to believe you. I'll tell them you're confused. I'll tell them you have memory problems. I'll say you gave me permission to use your card and forgot about it. I'll make you look like a senile old fool who can't keep track of his own finances. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. And Melissa will back me up. Won't you, baby? Melissa was standing frozen by the table, tears still streaming down her face. She looked between Brandon and me, her expression torn and devastated. Brandon, I can't lie about this. Brandon's face darkened. Yes, you can. Because if you don't, if you take his side, then our marriage is over. Is that what you want? You want to destroy everything we built together because your paranoid father made up some story about his credit card? I could see my daughter struggling. Part of her wanted to believe Brandon. Part of her was still hoping this was all some terrible misunderstanding. That was the power of manipulation. Even when faced with clear evidence, victims of emotional abuse still doubted themselves. Melissa, I said gently, you don't have to decide anything right now. But you saw the video. You saw the credit card statements. You know the truth. Brandon whirled, back toward me, his face flushed with anger. The truth? You want to talk about truth? The truth is you're a bitter old man who never liked me. You've been looking for an excuse to get rid of me since the day Melissa and I started dating. You never thought I was good enough for her. You made that clear every time we visited. I gave you respect, I said. I welcomed you into my home. I treated you like family, and you repaid me by stealing from me and lying to my daughter. Brandon's hands balled into fists at his sides. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. You want to play detective? Go ahead. You want to accuse me of stealing? Fine. But here's the thing, George. He stepped even closer, getting right in my face. You can't prove anything. Sure, you've got some blurry video of me picking up your wallet. So what? That doesn't prove I used your card. You've got credit card charges at stores near my office. Coincidence. Lots of people shop at those stores. You've got my social media post about a phone. I could have bought that phone anywhere, with any money. He jabbed his finger toward my chest, not quite touching me, but close enough to be threatening. You're an old man with a conspiracy theory and no real evidence. And you know what the police will do when you call them? They'll tell you it's a civil matter. They'll tell you to take me to small claims court, and that will cost you more in lawyer fees than the $1,500 you're crying about. So go ahead. Prove it, old man. I dare you. Prove I stole from you. I'll wait. The kitchen went completely silent after that. Even Melissa had stopped crying. She was just staring at Brandon with wide eyes, like she was seeing him for the first time. I stood there facing Brandon, his challenge hanging in the air between us. Prove it, old man. Those words echoed in my head. He thought I was powerless. He thought I was too old, too weak, too scared to do anything about what he had done. He was counting on me to back down, to let it go, to choose peace over justice. That's what most people did when family was involved. They swallowed their pride, accepted the betrayal, and moved on because they didn't want to cause drama. But Brandon had made a critical mistake. He forgot that I spent 3 decades putting criminals in jail. I knew exactly how to build a case. I knew exactly what evidence prosecutors needed, and I knew exactly how to make charges stick. More importantly, I knew that the worst thing I could do right now was argue with him. Arguing would make him defensive. Arguing would give him time to come up with better lies or destroy evidence. The best move was to stay completely silent and let him think he had won. So that's exactly what I did. I took a small step back and nodded slowly. "You're right, Brandon. I can't prove it." His smirk grew even wider. "Finally, some sense. Now, apologize to me and Melissa for this ridiculous accusation, and maybe we can move past this." Said nothing. I just started gathering up the papers and photos from the table, putting them back in the folder. Brandon watched me with satisfaction. That's what I thought. You talk a big game, but when it comes down to it, you've got nothing. Melissa's voice was small and broken when she spoke. "Brandon, we should go." He turned to her, his expression softening into fake concern. "Yeah, baby. Let's get out of here. Your dad clearly needs some time to think about what he's done." He put his arm around her shoulders, but I saw her flinch slightly at his touch. They walked toward the door together, Brandon moving with confident swagger like he had just won a victory. At the doorway, he turned back to look at me one more time. "Hey, George, thanks for dinner. The pot roast was good. Next time, maybe we can just have a nice meal without all the crazy accusations, yeah?" He smiled that charming smile, the same smile I had seen at their wedding, at family gatherings, at every dinner we had shared, the smile that had fooled me into thinking he was a decent person. "And by the way, if you do decide to waste your time calling the police, make sure you tell them about your security cameras. I'm sure they'll be really interested in how you've been secretly recording your guests without their knowledge. Pretty sure that's illegal too." He winked at me, then walked out the door with Melissa following behind him. I stood at my front window and watched Brandon's car pull out of my driveway. The taillights disappeared down the street, and only then did I allow myself to take a deep breath. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the effort it took to stay calm during that confrontation. Brandon thought he had won. He thought his threat about the security cameras would scare me off. He thought I would drop the whole thing and pretend it never happened. That was exactly what I wanted him to think. I walked back to my kitchen and sat down at the table. The pot roast was still sitting there, going cold. Nobody had finished eating. I looked at the 3 plates, the half-empty glasses of water, the napkins crumpled on the table. Just an hour ago, this had been a normal family dinner. Now everything was broken. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Robert Chen. He was a criminal defense attorney, but more importantly, he had been my friend for 27 years. We worked together on dozens of cases when I was still with the police department. He had retired from public defense 3 years ago and now ran a small private practice, handling mostly white-collar crime cases. I dialed his number. It was almost 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, but Robert picked up on the second ring. "George, everything okay?" His voice carried immediate concern. We didn't call each other often, maybe once every few months to get coffee or talk about old cases. A Sunday night call meant something serious. "I need some legal advice," I said, "about a fraud case." There was a pause. "Are you being investigated for something?" "No," I said. "I'm the victim." I spent the next 30 minutes telling Robert everything. The credit card charges, the video footage, the confrontation with Brandon. Robert listened without interrupting, which was his way. He took in all the facts first before offering opinions. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "George, you've got one of the cleanest fraud cases I've seen in years. The video alone is damning. Add in the credit card statements, the social media posts, the timeline, and you've got enough evidence to get a conviction." "What about what Brandon said?" I asked. "About the security cameras being illegal?" Robert made a dismissive sound. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recording. You're allowed to have security cameras in your own home without informing guests. As long as the cameras aren't in private areas like bathrooms or bedrooms, you're completely within your rights. Brandon was bluffing. He was trying to intimidate you because he knows he's caught. I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. So what's my next step? Robert's voice became more serious. First, we need to check if there are any other charges you missed. Brandon admitted to buying a watch. That means there are probably more unauthorized transactions. Tomorrow morning, call your credit card company and request a full 6-month transaction history. Go through every single charge. Highlight anything you don't recognize, no matter how small. These guys always start with small purchases to test if the card works before they go big. Okay, I said, pulling out a notepad to write this down. What else? Second, Robert continued, we need to visit that Tech World electronics store in person. We need to get a copy of the signed receipt from the phone purchase. The signature will be Brandon's, and that's crucial evidence. It proves beyond any doubt that he physically used your card information to make the purchase. Also ask if they have security footage from that day. Most stores keep it for at least 30 to 60 days. I wrote that down too. And then? Then we go to the police, Robert said. But George, you need to understand something. This isn't just about filing a report. This is about pressing criminal charges against your daughter's husband. Once we start this process, there's no taking it back. Brandon will be arrested. He'll have a criminal record. Your relationship with Melissa might be damaged permanently. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? I thought about Melissa's face during dinner, the shock, the tears, the way she looked at Brandon when she realized he had been lying to her for months. He stole from me, Robert. He looked me in the eye and robbed me. Then he laughed about it and called me a senile old man. If I let this go, what message does that send? That family can steal from each other without consequences? That being married to my daughter gives him permission to commit crimes? Robert sighed. You're right. I just wanted to make sure you understood what you're getting into. This won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is, I said. We talked for another few minutes about logistics. Robert said he would clear his schedule for Tuesday morning so we could go to Tech World together. He also said he would call a detective he knew at the Denver Police Department, someone who specialized in fraud cases. Her name was Detective Maria Santos, and she had a reputation for being thorough and fair. Robert would give her a heads up about the case so we wouldn't be walking in cold. After I hung up with Robert, I sat in my quiet kitchen for a long time. The house felt emptier than usual. I missed Beverly more in that moment than I had in months. She always knew what to say when I was struggling with difficult decisions. She would put her hand on my shoulder and tell me to follow my gut, to do what was right even when it was hard. I looked at her photo on the mantel in the living room. She was smiling in that picture, taken at our 30th anniversary dinner. Her eyes were bright and full of life, nothing like the hollow look she had in those final weeks before the cancer took her. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Bev, I said out loud to the empty room. I hope you'd be proud of me. The house didn't answer, but somehow I felt a little better. The next morning, Monday, I woke up early. I barely slept, my mind running through everything that needed to happen. I made coffee and sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop. First task, go through my credit card statements with a fine-tooth comb. I logged into my credit card account online and downloaded statements going back 6 months, just like Robert suggested. I opened a spreadsheet and started going through every single transaction line by line. It took me almost 3 hours, but I found them. 5 additional charges I hadn't noticed before. A gas station charge for $38 back in August. A fast food restaurant for $27 in early September. 2 more purchases at convenience stores, one for $19 and another for $31. And there it was, the watch. A jewelry store charge for $445 dated September 15th, 4 days before Brandon came to dinner and photographed my card. My stomach turned. He had been stealing from me for almost 2 months, maybe longer. These charges went back to August, which meant he had gotten my card information somehow even before that dinner. How? When? Then I remembered. Back in July, Brandon and Melissa had stayed at my house for a weekend while their apartment building was being fumigated. They slept in the guest bedroom. Brandon had access to my whole house for 3 days. He could have gone through my wallet any time. He probably photographed my card back then and had been using it ever since, making small purchases here and there that I wouldn't notice. The dinner in September, where I caught him on camera, that wasn't him stealing my information for the first time. That was him updating his photos, because credit cards have expiration dates printed on them. My card had probably gotten close to expiring, so he needed new photos of my replacement card. The realization made me angry all over again. This wasn't an impulse decision or a one-time mistake. This was calculated, planned theft that had been going on for months. Brandon had been systematically stealing from me, testing how much he could get away with, slowly escalating from small purchases to bigger ones. The $1,890 phone was just the purchase that finally got big enough for me to notice. I printed out all the statements with the fraudulent charges highlighted in yellow. Then I called my credit card company and spoke to their fraud department. I explained the situation and provided all the transaction details. The representative, a woman named Patricia, was sympathetic and professional. She said they would investigate each charge and issue me a refund for the fraudulent amounts. She also canceled my current card and said a new one would arrive in 5 business days. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. Robert picked me up at 9 o'clock in his silver Honda, and we drove to Tech World Electronics together. The store was in a strip mall on Maple Street, exactly where Brandon said it was. We walked inside, and I approached the customer service counter. A young man with glasses looked up from his computer. "Can I help you?" I explained that I needed a copy of a receipt from a purchase made on September 21st. I showed him my credit card statement with the transaction details. He looked uncertain, so I asked to speak with the manager. A woman in her 40s came out from the back office. Her name tag said Jennifer. I explained the situation more fully, that my credit card had been used fraudulently and I needed documentation for a police report. Jennifer's expression turned serious. "Of course. Let me pull up that transaction." She typed on her computer for a minute, then printed out a detailed receipt. There it was. September 21st, 2:47 p.m. iPhone 15, Pro Max, $1,299. And at the bottom, a signature. Brandon Reed, his full legal name signed in his distinctive handwriting, the same signature I had seen on birthday cards and Christmas gifts. "Do you still have security footage from that day?" Robert asked, and Jennifer nodded. "We keep footage for 90 days. Let me check." She disappeared into the back office and returned 10 minutes later with a USB drive. I pulled the footage from that afternoon. You can see the whole transaction. The customer matching that signature is clearly visible at the register. I thanked her and tucked both the receipt and the USB drive into the folder I was carrying. Robert and I drove straight from Tech World to the Denver Police Department downtown. Detective Maria Santos was waiting for us in a small conference room on the 3rd floor. She was maybe 50 years old, with short dark hair and sharp eyes. That reminded me of my own detective days. I laid out everything on the table. The credit card statements with 8 fraudulent charges totaling 2 932s. The video from my home security camera showing Brandon photographing my credit card. The receipt from Tech World with his signature. The USB drive with store security footage. My documentation showing I was at a doctor's appointment when the phone was purchased. Brandon's social media posts showing the phone and bragging about buying it himself. Detective Santos went through every piece of evidence carefully, taking notes. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like respect in her eyes. "Mr. Patterson, this is one of the most complete fraud cases I've ever seen presented. You did my job for me." 32 years in fraud investigation, I said. "Old habits." She smiled slightly. "I can tell." "Okay, here's what happens next. I'm going to get an arrest warrant based on this evidence. Credit card fraud over $1,000 is a Class 5 felony in Colorado. Given the amount and the number of transactions, I'd say we're looking at 18 months to 3 years if he's convicted, plus restitution and probation. My chest felt tight. How long until the arrest? Warrant should be approved by tomorrow morning, Detective Santos said. We'll serve it Wednesday. Do you know his home address? I wrote down the address of the apartment Brandon and Melissa shared. My hand shook slightly as I wrote it. This was really happening, Detective Santos noticed. Mr. Patterson, I know this is family. That makes it harder. But what he did was a crime, regardless of his relationship to you. You're doing the right thing. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Robert and I left the police station around noon. He offered to buy me lunch, but I wasn't hungry. He drove me home, and we sat in my driveway for a moment before I got out. You okay, George? He asked. I will be, I said, once this is over. That night, I tried to call Melissa 3 times. She didn't answer. I left one voicemail. Sweetheart, it's Dad. I know you're upset with me. I know this is hard, but I love you, and I'm here when you're ready to talk. She didn't call back. I barely slept Tuesday night. I kept thinking about what would happen Wednesday morning. Would Brandon resist arrest? Would Melissa be there when it happened? Would she hate me forever for this? Wednesday morning came. I made coffee, but couldn't drink it. I sat in my living room with my phone in my hand, waiting. Detective Santos had said they would serve the warrant around 9 o'clock. At 9:15, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Patterson, this is Detective Santos. We've just arrested Brandon Reed at his residence. He's being processed now and will be arraigned this afternoon. My hands went numb. Was my daughter there? Yes, sir. She was very upset but cooperative. She's not being charged with anything. This is solely on Mr. Reed. I thanked her and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at Beverly's photo. It's done, Bev. He's been arrested. I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a heavy weight in my chest and the knowledge that I had done what needed to be done. My phone rang again 20 minutes later. This time it was Melissa. I answered immediately. Dad, her voice was thick with crying. They arrested Brandon. The police came to our apartment with handcuffs. All the neighbors saw. Dad, how could you do this? I'm sorry you had to see that, sweetheart, I said quietly. But he committed a crime. Multiple crimes. He stole from me for months. She sobbed on the other end of the line. You ruined his life. He's going to have a criminal record. He might go to prison. And for what? Some money? Was it worth destroying our family? Those words hurt worse than anything Brandon had said to me. Melissa, he destroyed our family when he decided to steal from me and lie to you. I didn't do this. He did. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in the silence of my empty house, wondering if I had lost my daughter forever. The next few weeks were difficult. Melissa wouldn't speak to me. Brandon was released on bail after his parents paid $5,000. His arraignment set a trial date for January. Robert kept me updated on the legal proceedings. The district attorney's office offered Brandon a plea deal, plead guilty to 1 count of felony credit card fraud, serve 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and pay full restitution of $2,032, plus my legal fees and court costs. Total amount, $7,800. Brandon's public defender tried to negotiate a better deal, but the evidence was too strong. In late October, 6 weeks after his arrest, Brandon accepted the plea deal. He had no choice. Going to trial would have meant risking a longer sentence. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for November 15th. I didn't attend, but Robert did. He called me afterward with the results. Judge gave him the full 18 months. No early release eligibility. He starts serving time next week. I thanked Robert and hung up. That evening, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door and found Melissa standing on my porch. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked exhausted. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where this all began. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Melissa said, "I filed for divorce yesterday." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Don't be sorry. You were right about him. About everything." After he got arrested, I started looking through our finances. He had been stealing from me too, Dad. He took money from our joint account. He used my credit card without asking. He even pawned some of my jewelry and told me I must have lost it. My jaw tightened. "Did you tell the police?" "I did," she said. "They're adding those charges to his record. But that's not why I'm here." She wiped her eyes. "I'm here to apologize. You tried to protect me, and I didn't believe you. I chose him over you. I said terrible things to you. And I'm so sorry." I squeezed her hand. "You loved him. You wanted to believe in him. That's not a crime. That's just being human." We sat together for a long time, talking about everything. About Brandon's lies. About her plans to move forward. About how she was going to rebuild her life. When she finally left, she hugged me tight at the door. "I love you, Dad. Thank you for not giving up on me." "I will never give up on you," I said. "Never." Brandon started serving his sentence on November 20th. He would be in county jail until May 2027. His felony conviction meant he would struggle to find decent employment when he got out. His reputation was destroyed, his marriage was over, and he owed me $7,800 that would follow him for years until it was paid in full. The watch he bought with my money was seized and sold to pay part of the restitution. The phone was long gone, sold or pawned probably. 2 weeks before Christmas, I received a check in the mail from the court for $30,000, the first installment of my restitution. I looked at that check for a long time. Then I drove to the bank and deposited it. The next day, I wrote a check for the exact same amount to a nonprofit organization that helped elderly people who were victims of financial fraud. Beverly would have liked that. The money meant nothing to me. Justice meant everything. On Christmas Day, Melissa came over for dinner. We made pot roast together, following Beverly's recipe. This time we finished the meal. We laughed and told stories about Beverly. We didn't talk about Brandon. He was in the past now, where he belonged. As I sat across from my daughter, watching her smile for the first time in months, I thought about how Brandon had challenged me that night in my kitchen. "Prove it, old man." So I did. I proved every single charge. I proved he was a thief and a liar. I proved that even at 70 years old, I still knew how to catch criminals. And most importantly, I proved to my daughter that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when it's painful. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever dealt with theft by a family member? Share your experience in the comments below. We read every single one. Click on the video on the left to hear another story about family betrayal and justice. Thank you for watching, and remember, the truth always comes out in the end.